Welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to be looking at the Glacier colors from the Schmincke Super Granulation range. First of all, let's have a look at what colors are in the Glacier range. First up, we have the Glacier Blue, which is made with PB29 and PG50. Then we have Glacier Turquoise, which is made of PG50 and PV16. Glacier Green, which is made of PR233 and PG50. Glacier Brown, PBR6 and PG26. And finally, we have the Glacier Black, made with PBK11 and PB35. That's all the colors ready and dry. Let's take a good look at the first one, shall we? Glacier Blue. And in case you're like, are we watching the last video where we watched the deep sea color range? Because this color looks really familiar. Don't worry, you're not the only one. And I will talk about the very, very similar colors that we have in the whole super granulating range, because we actually have in the next video when we look at the Galaxy one, where the color is basically the opposite of this, where the cobalt turquoise or the PG50 is the dominant color, and then the ultramarine blue or the PB29 is the less dominant color as well. I will go through all that in the final video of this series, which will be episode 6, where I will go through like all the pros and cons and how to choose between the different colors, and I will show you the very, very similar colors and help you pick between those if you want to pick between those. But yes, this is basically ultramarine blue with a tiny bit of the PG50 coming through, like very, very slightly. You do get some of the bright cobalt turquoise, probably cobalt turquoise, because we don't know which exact color they used. We just know the pigment codes coming through if you squint. But if you already have ultramarine blue on your palette, you do not need this color. Unless you are specifically looking for this very, very minor detail, then sure, absolutely. But otherwise, if you're just generally looking to buy new colors, I think you'd be disappointed if you already have ultramarine blue on your palette, because this is so similar. There's nothing surprising about it. It's exactly what you would expect in a ultramarine blue, apart from maybe like you get some shininess happening here, up here, and obviously where the color has pulled here as it dried, there's definitely a huge strong shine. So it's not even like a great ultramarine blue paint. It is, however, super easy to re-wet. Don't know how they managed that with ultramarine blue and cobalt turquoise, but well done for them making it super easy to re-wet. In terms of mixing colors, exactly what you would expect in ultramarine blue. There's no surprises. And maybe if you squint again, that the when you mix it with the Queen Rose, it's slightly pastely, you know, that little bit of chalkiness that you get with cobalt colors. Yeah, if you squint, it's slightly more chalky, but that's about it. And in terms of opacity, lift and glaze, exactly as you would expect. It's slightly opaque, like tiny bit opaque, which Schmincke also classifies this as semi-transparent, and I would agree with that. Very, very easy to lift. I think this is the easiest color to lift. You get it almost pretty much back to the pure white of the paper. And it's dodgy on the glazing because it is so easy to lift. But that's it. This is exactly the same as ultramarine blue. Just you'd have to squint to notice the difference. Next up, we have the Glacier Turquoise. And this is a mix of PG50, probably a cobalt turquoise, with a PV16, probably a manganese violet. And that results in a cooler cobalt turquoise color. But I'm also sure that you get cobalt blue colors on their own that are this color. But if you can't think of them, then this is a really good shortcut to getting that same hue. It's very low in tinting strength, which results in a much paler palette. This color will be great on a low tinting strength palette, but it will struggle with a high tinting strength palette like mine. It's almost a shame. I kind of wish they leaned into the manganese violet more and created a more violet-y, bit more adventurous color. But this is the color we have. It's very opaque. I wouldn't call this semi-opaque, which is what they've called it. I would actually call this opaque because you've got the cobalt. It's very easy to lift again, which makes it difficult to glaze with. But I have to say, with both the Glacier Blue and the Glacier Turquoise, even though they're much easier to lift than, say, the colors we looked at in the deep sea colors, I would say these actually glaze a little bit better. Maybe that, or I just got better at glazing as I was painting all this in one session. This one is basically a more muted, cooler kind of cobalt color. Then we have the Glacier Green, which kind of reminds me of one of the deep sea Indigo, but it's slightly different. And that's the thing with releasing 25 colors in one go, is that there are a lot of similar colors, and I'll talk about that more in the final episode of the series. Glacier Green is definitely the warmer grain. You get this gorgeous granulation of warmth happening with the PR233, which I'm guessing is Potter's Pink, mixed in with the Cobalt Turquoise, and this is beautiful. And if you do a lot of sea painting or seascapes or sea landscapes, then this might be a really interesting color for you, because it looks like beautiful seawater with the sand coming through. It creates actually a quite beautiful palette with mixing in with the other colors. This lime green is gorgeous. I love how soft and muted these colors are. I think actually this color works better mixing with the warmer colors, like these colors, than these colors. Although these, with the cooler colors, they create great texture and almost shadow in it. You can see this like being the sea and the shadow being automatically put into it. So I would definitely recommend this if you paint a lot of sea. In terms of transparency, this is classified as semi-opaque, and I would agree with that, because this is the Glacier Turquoise, which I would call opaque, and this definitely has a lot of deposit, but it's not as much as that. So it's a semi-opaque color, which I agree with. Easy to lift. I just love this texture. I think this is one of my favorite colors from the Glacier range. It's easy to lift, which also means it's not the best at glazing, but just the beautiful colors you get from mixing it with warmer colors. It really works well because it alters the main color, the color you're mixing it with. It alters the hue in terms of cooling it and muting it down, especially with the vermilion. But then because of the warm granulation coming through really well, it doesn't interfere with the color. It just adds beautiful granulation. Next we have the Glacier Brown, and this one is a beast of a color. It's super easy to re-wet. It is the highest tinting strength color in the whole range, and let's say something like this Glacier Turquoise is relatively low tinting strength. Look at just look at the difference in how intense this color is, and you're gonna need a lot more of your color that you're mixing into this than you will with the Glacier Turquoise. Wouldn't recommend having both on your palette, because then your color mixing is gonna get really confusing. But Glacier Brown, I would say, is a super high tinting strength, and I have really high tinting strength colors on my palette, so this will be great for me. I would think of this as how I would use the transparent red oxide from Daniel Smith on my palette. I love mixing with that color. This is very similar, only it's more opaque. So if you are looking for a more opaque version to have in your Be Well, and if you don't know what I'm talking about with the Be Well, check out my color theory series, because it will make sense to you then. So this will be a great one if you're looking for an opaque granulating color to go in your Be Well and you have really strong colors on your palette. Do not get this if you have weak tinting strengths palette, because you will use so much of those colors and like a tiny bit of this color and you will still just get brown. It is made with PBR6, which, thank you for everyone who let me know that Schmincke does have Mars Brown as PBR6. So if you want that color in Schmincke, you can use Mars Brown. And then PG26, probably Cobalt Green Dark, maybe, I'm just guessing here. But these two kind of make sense here because it doesn't show as much on here. But if you look here, and like if you want to have a detailed look, I do put scans of all these test sheets in the entire series up on my Patreon, so do check it out. It's patreon.com/AutoKano. If you look here, you do see the Cobalt Green Dark coming through in the granulation, and once you see that, then you will see the green granulation coming through here and a little bit in the background here, but you kind of have to squint to notice, whereas you definitely see the green more here. And somebody asked me what is the best paper to use to make the most out of these colors. Definitely anything with a teeth texture, so cold press and even rough paper will be the best. If you use hot press, you're not going to see as much granulation because you need the pits in the paper for the granulation to collect and gather and pour. That's where you get these granulation happen. It's an amazing color. It is again, as I said, in this series of color, it is a beast of color. In fact, I think it's one of the super highest tinting strengths color I've ever encountered and done these mixes with. Beautiful colors. It mixes everything so nicely. These are the original colors, nice and bright, and with just addition of the Glacier Brown, you get these rich jewel tones. So if you are like, well, I've got these on my palette, but how do I get these rich colors? Instead of buying lots of rich colors separately, what you can do is just get one tube of Glacier Brown if you're looking for a granulating, opaque, strong color. Or if you're looking for transparent color, get the transparent red oxide from Daniel Smith. I know I'm advertising other brands in a Schmincke video. I don't care. They didn't sponsor me. I asked. They said no. So I can do whatever I like and mention any brands that I fancy. So if you want to transform these bright colors to rich, gorgeous colors, just get either that or the transparent red oxide and you're there, which saves a lot of money. It's a quite opaque color. It's classified as opaque, which is good because I would classify this as opaque color. Heavily staining, or at least a lot more staining than other colors, but also not great at glazing still. None of these colors are great at glazing. For good glazing, you want transparent, highly staining colors. These are neither of those things. And then let's move on to Glacier Black, which I'm sure we saw this in the Deep Sea Black. It's pretty much the same. So Deep Sea Black is this one, Glacier Black is this one. The only difference is that whether this one has Cobalt Blue Deep or PB74 color in it, as well as these two. That's the only difference. And I would say this is the warmer black and then this is the cooler black. So you definitely don't need both. Just pick whether you want a cooler one or warmer black. A little bit like choosing between peach lamp and ivory black. You just want one of them that you like. It has, I would say that this has more texture. This has more granulation. You can see in the mass tone here. Then here the Glacier Black, but you also get more texture happening in the lighter washes. So you could choose between these colors depending on you want a lot of texture in your lighter colors or your darker colors. In terms of mixing colors, it's just like mixing these colors with a granulating black. Probably wouldn't call it the best mixing colors. In terms of opacity, this is classified as semi-opaque, but I would actually classify this as semi-transparent. I can barely see the deposits here. There's definitely some, but I can barely see it. And you can see the granulation happening here quite nicely with that blue coming through, but it's definitely not as strong as the deep sea black. It's relatively easy to lift and therefore not great at glazing. So here are all 5 colors of the Glacier Colors. If I had to sum up, beast color that's great at granulation, beautiful soft palette mixing color, very similar to before, just a muted cobalt green turquoisey color. If I had to rank them, I would definitely, and ranking is always my personal ranking of what colors I would buy, definitely Glacier Brown first and then Glacier Green second, and I would actually put the blue, turquoise and black like at the bottom together. Like, these did not do anything for me. I would pick the deep sea black over the Glacier Black just because it's more intense in texture. So that's a no, that's a no, and that's a no. So I would probably, if I were to invest in putting it on my palette, either the brown or the green, and if I had to only pick one, I would pick the brown purely because I have a strong tinting strings palette. But beautiful colors. Glacier Green is a beautiful mixing color, and it tempts me to want a lighter tinting strings palette just so that I can have this on the palette. I hope this video was useful to you guys. If it has, then please do like, subscribe, comment, share, all those things, because as I said before in my previous video, my numbers have really plummeted, both in terms of views and new subscribers. So if you can help out in any way, I'm incredibly grateful. Also, let me know what you think of these colors, which one's your favorite, which one you might go for if you're open to going for, which colors you hated. That's totally fine too. Every comment helps. Next week we are going to be looking at the galaxy colors. I hope you join me for that. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will speak to you later. Bye!